is the Monday Morning Motivator with Magoch. Oh, good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the Monday Morning Motivator meeting. I see you guys there. Thank you for joining me live today. I would love to say hey to Commission Crowd over there, the home of the independent sales rep. Hello to Cambridge Global Play. I see you out there. And Goldstein Media, hi. And all the Szazzle and TechServe and Opera Artists, thanks for joining me today. Guys, I want to give a shout out to you and all the musicpreneurs too that are joining me this morning, because I actually posted out on my music fan page that I was doing these success trainings and that musicians should absolutely consider themselves entrepreneurs, right? So all of these principles work together and everyone can benefit. So thanks for joining me. We're going to get right into our Monday morning meeting today, if that's okay with you. So if it's your first time here, we run these like a sales meeting, like the sales meetings that I run for my teams. And so we're going to go through, first we're going to set intentions, then we're going to run through your metrics for the week, keep you accountable. I'm going to share with you my number one marketing tip for this week, what's working for me right now in Marketing Minute. And then we're going to move on to Motivation Minute. So whether you're a salesperson, an entrepreneur, or a sales manager who's got to run their own meetings, you could watch me and copy for your own meetings, or you could just live stream me right into your office. Hey, that would be awesome, right? So let's start with intention. I always like to start off the week with, why are you doing this in the first place? So let's just take a minute and collect and just remind yourself of why you started your business in the first place, why you started selling what you're selling in the first place, on the day that you decided to do it, what inspired you. Because it can get really hard throughout the week as you start getting beaten up and getting a lot of no's. It can be really hard to keep going, right? I've been there, I'm there, I have my own business too. But I find that keeping in the forefront what is important to you and why you started in the first place is the thing that keeps you going when things get hard. So all the techniques and all the scripts and everything in the world are, yes, they're going to help you. But if you don't have that foundation of why you're doing it in the first place, then there's really no reason to get through all the pain and discomfort of how hard it can be being in your own business. And selling whatever you're selling takes a lot of rejection. So if we remember why we started in the first place, then that can be the fuel that helps you change your habits, change your mindset. Because there's one thing that's for sure. What you know now got you where you are now. And that's great if that's where you want to stay. But if you want to improve in any area of your life, whether it's business, financial, personal, etc., if you want to improve anything, you have to expand what you know. And expanding what you know also expands how you think. So change is uncomfortable, right? I like to give the example of the snake shedding its skin. I just found the picture of a snake in the process of shedding its skin, and it was angry. It just had this angry face, and I know how that is, because whenever working with a sales rep or an entrepreneur on getting through a hurdle, I get a lot of anger back at me, right? They get angry at me for calling them out or trying to help them improve on something. And that's because change is uncomfortable. But the only reason you're going to go through that discomfort to get to the other side is if your why is big enough. So whatever it is, make sure it's something strong, a strong reason to do what you're doing that lasts the test of time. And if your why is not big enough or don't really care about what you're doing right now, I would suggest finding something else. I know sales managers might be like yelling at me right now, but find something that does inspire you, but more likely find the thing within what you're already doing that inspires you, because there's joy in everything, to kind of use the woo-woo term for it. So, and wherever you are now, you can learn something that's going to help you get to where you want to be, whether in another area of your life or in your next business. If you're a salesperson and you eventually want to open your own business, everything you're learning about selling, while someone's paying you to do it, is going to help you launch anything else you want to do in your life. So, and I believe sales is probably, the best skill set an entrepreneur can learn. And so just to let you know what my intention is with these meetings is, as you know or don't know, I'm a sales trainer. I'm a sales coach. I've built a $100 million sales team. We've generated over $100 million in revenue in less than 3 years with 30 commission-only sales reps. And then instead of working for someone else after that role was complete, I decided that I would go out and teach these principles to everyone in the form of the Sales Launch Code, which is an accelerator course to get you from startup to conversion machine in 6 weeks. And yes, in that we give you the scripts and we give you the exactly what to do, what to say, how to, build your sales playbook and launch quickly. But also we help you with your success principles and mindsets to change, from what you know now to where you want to go. Because I could give you the script that works for me, but it's not the script that's what's wrong. Usually it's not the script that's the real problem. I can give you award-winning scripts, but but whatever your limiting beliefs are, your mindset, it's going to come through in that script. So that's what we really have to work on. And we do that in the course. But since those principles are things that everyone can benefit from, I decided to launch this YouTube Live so that I could share these principles, because they really apply way beyond, sales success or being successful as an entrepreneur. They can really help you get through any of the battles that you're dealing with in all areas of your life, but mainly, growing your business and reaching your full potential. So that's why I'm doing this. I would love to know why you're doing what you're doing. So either drop it in the chat or send me over an email. I love to get them. You guys know I respond to every single comment and every single email personally, because it's very important to me to have a direct relationship with you. So let's move on. Metrics, keeping yourself accountable. Okay, if this is your first time with me, you might be intimidated by all these numbers, but one of the first things we have to do is in business is really start to get comfortable with numbers. Can't see the top. What the heck? All right. Well, I'll just have to tell you what the top is. It must have been a different angle last week. So why is it important to know your numbers? Numbers is basically tracking all of your activity to show where you are so that you can improve to get to where you want to be, right? So, and I'm going to relate this today actually to music, because I do have a bunch of musicpreneurs joining me, and musicians tend to be adverse to, numbers and business numbers and money, which is odd because music is actually all based around numbers, right? So music is all constructed through a series of formulas and numbers that work together on a consistent basis. So if you like music, then you're probably going to love tracking your numbers. But so we're going to track how many outbound activities did you have last week. If you weren't with me last week, you get a pass this week. But if you were with me last week and we talked about we need to track the importance of tracking your numbers, it's uncomfortable, it takes time, it's annoying, it's not fun. We tend to look at, what we did wrong and start to beat ourselves up over it. But again, if that why is strong enough, then you'll do anything you need to do to get better. And that includes tracking your numbers every week. So how many outbound activities did you do? Cold calls, emails, networking, people you met at networking events, follow-ups, trade shows, people you talked to at trade shows. We're going to count how many outbound activities and try to make those at least 200. Now, some of you that might say, 200. And I know what you're thinking. Oh, I could just push a button and send out 200 of the same exact email to 200 people. And that will only take me, 5 minutes. And then you'll get really, average or below average results. So let's not take any shortcuts. If you're emailing people, email them directly. Not talk, if you're doing that initial outreach. I'm not talking about like people who joined your email list for updates. I'm talking about your initial outbound cold emails. Please do not send the same email to everyone. And even if it has a merge field in it, we know we get those emails all the time. We know they're spam. Okay. Even if it's something valuable, if it's not very highly personal, someone like me, any CEO, anybody who runs a business or anybody who's busy, which is everybody, is just going to ignore it. Okay. So outbound activities, make those at least 200. Musicians, imagine if you reached out to 200 venues a week about booking gigs. I think you'd be booked all for the next 5 years if we actually spent time outbound marketing our business instead of waiting for people to come, to you and book you for a gig. And then how many of those activities turned into leads? So people who said, yeah, I'm interested, tell me more. How many of those turned into discovery meetings? So that initial call or visit, or sometimes it's by email, but really for only low ticket sales. But this is where you start to develop a relationship with the client. So discovery meeting is getting all of the information you need in order to make a presentation, and also to make sure it's the right time to do a presentation. I'm not going to go into too much detail because I don't want this to be sales class. But your discovery meeting, and then sometimes that leads right into a presentation, or usually it's a second meeting. Musicians, this is where you're going to send them your demo. And then or to talk about the event, close it out, get the agreement, agree on the price, all of that happens in the presentation. And then how many of those convert to closed deals? And then how many referrals did you get? We talked about referrals a couple weeks ago, how important they are to track and keep as part of your business. If it's something that you're striving towards getting more word of mouth marketing, then it's something you have to actively build into your business. And then what were your conversion percentages for each? So as long as you have those numbers, you divide this over, is it that over that or that over that? What percent of outbound turned into leads? So percent times leads equals outbound. So you divide your outbound over leads equals, so you do this divided by this to get the percentage. And then you do this divided by this to get the percentage. Okay. And then you could, of course, always do this to this. Like you count how many leads converted to closed deals. But the reason why we track every single phase in the sales process is so we can tell what's broken. Okay? Broken. I don't know. Is that the word? Is it the word I want? It's so negative. Where your funnel's leaky, right? Where there's like people flying out of your funnel. Does it happen here, or do you have a really great success in converting people to leads, but then you lose them somewhere here or somewhere here or somewhere here? I know a lot of people who are missing like this part here, right? That presentation to close deals, there's like, they add a stage here, and it's called like follow-up, right? Because they didn't set up their sale properly, so people don't buy right after the presentation, what we call a one-call close. I'm going into too much detail. I'm not going to do that. Sorry. I get so passionate about these things. I love teaching. I love teaching about sales in the different phases. But this part is where I specialize, actually, is that percentage of presentations to close deals. And just a hint, a heads up, is that it's usually not so much to do with your presentation, but something that starts all the way up here. So we really do work on everything. But when people have a problem with this percentage, that's when they come to me. And I teach them how to close. I'm a closing coach. And actually, that's what we're going to talk about today in the Motivation Minute, because I came to this, I'm always thinking and philosophizing, but I came to this realization about one of the mindset issues behind closing deals, or the inability or resistance to closing deals. So I'm going to talk about that today. I'm really excited about that. Okay. Marketing minute. That's my transition. That's my fancy transition. Let's talk about marketing. Sorry. Okay. Let's talk about marketing. I love to share one little nugget of something that you can do to help put people in the top of that pipeline for you. And of course, I don't have enough time to tell you, the how to do it, because that would take an hours. But I just want to always continue to jog your mind of different things that you can do in your business to generate leads. Because no matter where you are in your business, you always have to market. It just never ends. And if you hate it, that's bad news for you. But I think you'll get to love marketing once you figure it out and it starts working for you. And then you'll grow to love it because it works, because it has some predictability, and you know that when you do this activity, you get this result, and that encourages you to keep going. But you won't know what that is unless you track your numbers. Remember, I'm not your sales manager, so you're not doing this for me. You're doing it for you to keep yourself accountable for what you're putting into your business so that you can predict what's coming out. Okay? So be accountable to yourself. Know what you're putting into your business so you can predict what's coming out. Okay. Let's talk about marketing. Just going to share a little tidbit because some controversy about this subject. I'm going to share with you today is social media marketing. Some people say it's a waste of time. Some people say my market is not on social media. That's kind of weird. And everyone's on something. Some people say you can't be in everywhere. You should only just be in like one or two places as far as like different social media platforms. So as you know, I've been becoming obsessed with digital marketing because I'm really interested in how to grow businesses digitally in this new age and all these new marketing tactics that we have. But I'm just going to give you a little insight into how I approach social media marketing. And we recently launched this new campaign around social media, and our approach really is be everywhere, but use tools and technology so that you can be everywhere without having to do a ton of work. So, for instance, we take this YouTube live, and then we share it to Facebook Live, because actually it broadcasts live once we get it in there. That's like another fan page I have. And then we also put it out into the podcast world, which there are multiple platforms to launch your podcast through. But there's tools that we use, Podbean, and that launches them out to all of them. Spotify, iTunes, all the other places that I don't listen to, but it'll be there. and then so that's the three places where it's gonna live. But then as far as social media, we're taking quotes, and you've probably seen these around, and video clips, and we're sharing them. So these are going out to my Facebook page. They're going out to Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, of course. And we use a tool called Meet Edgar to do that. So what's cool about that is that you load it in there once, and not only does it auto post for you, but it'll recycle through your content. Like once you get to the end, it'll go back to the beginning and keep putting out content so you don't have to worry about scheduling every post in there. And there's some limitations. So for Pinterest, we have to use Tailwind. And for Instagram, we have to use Hootsuite, because there right now, Meet Edgar doesn't post to Instagram directly. So those are some of the tools that we're using to create that. And then we're also doing a LinkedIn article, a Reddit article, and a Quora article. I find out a lot of my people live on Quora. And so those are all have the YouTube video embedded in them. And then all of this channels back to my blog post. Okay, it's like social media is only as good as where it's getting people next, right? It's like an opening in the door. But if you're not sending them someplace else to capture them, then all you did was send out a meme or a cool video. And that's part of brand awareness, but it's really difficult to track. So all of these posts are tagged with the short link to our blog post, right? Which also has this YouTube video embedded in it, which then also goes out to our newsletter for people that missed it, and little extra notes from me and tidbits and advice and stuff. So can you see, this might be a little, now that I look at it, it's a little like intense, but basically you want to use, or at least the way I use it, I'm not going to be judgy and pretend I'm a social media expert, but the way I use it is one, consistent effort is huge. Ugh, I can't see that. Consistent, I'll put it down here. Consistent effort. There was a time where I was posting regularly, and then I started getting a bunch of like full-time or long-term consulting gigs, and we stopped posting, and I really noticed a decline in traffic to the website and inquiries and things like that. So I learned my lesson there to never let that social media activity wane. And the way that you do that is by using these tools so that you don't have to invest time into it. And then so consistent, and then also like I want to say deliberate or purposeful, deliberate. So the purpose is to drive them to my website, because on the website is that link for the free training where they can take more time with me to learn the science of why people really buy. But if you haven't already seen that, you should click on the link below this video so you can join me and learn the real reason why people buy. The one thing the best salespeople know that you can steal to make more sales instantly. Do it. It's awesome. Which of course then teaches them more about how they could work with me if that's something that you want to think about. So this is how I use social media. And here's another interesting concept though that kind of dives into the woo-woo realm, right? One reason why social media, has a bad rap of like, doesn't work, or is because it's difficult to track what your social media effort is, how it's actually converting into sales. Now in like, let's say if you run like a social media ad, there's tools embedded in there that will show you how it's actually converting. So like how much money it actually made you, which they need to do because it's ROI, right? If you're gonna spend money, you gotta make money. You gotta make money back. Whereas social media has very low cost to entry. These tools are not expensive, and you really can get a lot of content out there for near nothing. But unless you have a way, I guess there's a way that you could track all of the links back to sales. You'd need individual links on every single post. But in general, like we can look back at that we can see how much traffic came to the blog, but we can't necessarily track an individual person and say if they, opted in through the blog or from a post into a conversion. So Seth, if you're watching and I'm wrong, tell me, because we should definitely build that into our campaign so we could track actual purchases off of the social media effort. But here's like the woo-woo thing that I wanted to share with you about social media marketing is there's this weird thing about putting yourself out there versus not putting yourself out there. Now, if success were linear meaning it followed a step-by-step ABC, right? First of all, like everyone would be buying that course. If success was linear, if it followed a straight line that you can follow to get to the end, then it'd be easy to track, how social media is affecting you or how putting yourself out there is affecting you. But success and marketing in general, because I love relating this to laws of the universe. Sorry if I'm going on a ledge here. I have to, because this is really the real stuff that really makes a difference. Is that it's like you're sending a message out to the world or the universe or what have you, that you're here and you're ready and you're open to receive. So it's not necessarily someone then who clicks on your post and buys something that is the full, linear cycle, but it's also that unknown factor of putting yourself out there and committing to doing something. And certainly if you're posting like this on a regular basis, you're really committed to getting a result and you're really committed to your why. And so there's something about that draws in opportunity to other areas that had nothing to do with your post. They didn't even see your post. So, okay, that's a little woo-woo. I know that's intimidating to some people, but when you get deep into these success principles, this is really what, makes the difference of earning 6 figures and earning multiple 6 figures or 7 figures or 8 figures and up. So that's Marketing Minute. Oh, do you guys know I'm going to Universal Studios this week with the kids? So next week, I'm going to be broadcasting live from Universal Studios. I forget the name of the hotel. It's that Italian one that's so pretty. Darn it. Well, when we get there, I'll remember the name of the hotel because I'll be there. Okay, so here's what I wanted to talk about with Marketing Minute. And I hope you don't mind if it makes you a lot of money. Is that cool? I wanted to talk about that closing part and this realization that I had about closing and people's resistance to closing. Because even this morning, I was on a call where someone asked me for money. And when this person asked me for money, he cleared his throat and he coughed a little bit. He's like, it was fine up until this point, but at this point, he said, can I have your credit card number? and this is why in my coaching practice, I always work face-to-face with people because, like I said, I could give you all the scripts, but those nonverbal clues really clue me into what the real issue might be with any of the scripts that you're using, because it goes back to beliefs and what we believe. So I want to ask you a question before we deep dive any further. But when I ask you this question, again, I can't see your answer because I can't see you. And I'm not going to ask you to write down your answer. I'm not going to ask you to share your answer. This is for you only, just so you know that you can be totally honest with yourself. But I'm going to give you a sentence and it has a blank in it. And I want you to fill in the blank with the absolute first word that comes into your mind. Okay, can you do that? Can you be open and honest with yourself and just get that first snap blank and just jot that down on a piece of paper? Okay, cool. Sales managers, this is the cool exercise to do with your team as well. All right, here it goes. You ready? Rich people are blank. First answer. Okay, I don't even have to let you think about it because you already should have your answer. All right, now, like I said, I'm not going to ask you to share your answer, but I know what some of the answers are because not only have I done this exercise a ton of times with salespeople, rich people, there's a glare. All right, rich people are blank. Now, this is part of what made me come up with this realization about closing. There's a man, Bob Proctor. You guys know Bob Proctor? He was in The Secret, but he's also like a success coach. And he's like he's very wealthy, but he's also, he's very giving, right? So he's very generous man. Well, he had an ad on Facebook, which I thought was odd because, I mean, usually don't see people like him running ads on Facebook. But he was, and I was surprised to see him. And then I saw some of the comments below his video. And here's some of the things that people said, which is why I know some of you listening might feel this way. So one of them was, never trust a badly dressed so-called rich man. Right? He was wearing this like plaid jacket, right? So never trust, right? So he said, never trust a so-called rich man. All of those things are telling me that person thinks rich people are liars. Okay? Some of you might have had that. Another person said, many rich people aren't happy because they are very superficial and arrogant too. Okay, so superficial and arrogant. Okay, tell me when I hit your word. They only think about getting richer. So I would say that's selfish. And maybe you should focus on giving instead of making money. God is going to ask what you did for people, and your time is coming. Okay, so that comes back to selfish, but also maybe you should focus on giving. Well, greedy, right? Like assuming that because he's talking about how to make money, he's a greedy person because he's not giving back. She's assuming he's not giving back. If money is so easy to accrue, why not spend a little of it on a tailor? Okay, so then I guess he's saying that rich people are, well, maybe they should be well-dressed, but I think that goes back into to lying, right? So he's lying about being rich, otherwise he would have a suit that they agreed with more. I don't know. And let's see. All the money in the world can't buy good taste. Well, that's true. Nobody said it did. If you don't lose weight, you may get sick. So he's not even overweight, but rich people are fat. Oh, can't buy good taste. That was ugly. And I've heard that a lot in these exercises. So rich people are ugly. Money, 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 money. It's all about money. How much do you want? So to me, that's also greedy, right? And then, but you don't want, I bet you don't want any of my hard-earned money if you're so good at making cash. So again, that goes back to greedy. but also that person hasn't learned yet that people don't appreciate what they don't pay for. So we have rich people are blank, and you fill in your blank. And I purposely use the word rich and not like wealthy, right? Because I think in our society, wealthy has a different connotation than rich. Rich, I think, is usually only directed towards financial, whereas wealth could mean, wealthy in other areas of your life. So people are a little more forgiving of the word wealth than they are rich, which is why I used rich. Because it's going to tell you, and this is what this exercise does, because it's a snap answer, it tells you what your preconceived notions about rich people are. Okay? Now, I'm not disagreeing that some rich people are like that. Like, that's not the point. What it is telling you is what you really feel about being rich, which also is an indication of how you feel about money. Because rich means you have money, right? And so then you have all these adjectives that, I could tell these people feel that way. And I bet some of you feel that way too. And maybe you're even embarrassed with some of your answers, because you might already be saying, but wait, I don't really feel that way. I know someone who's rich and they're not like that, right? That's how I felt when I did this exercise the first time. I think I put selfish. And I immediately thought, well, that's not true though, because I know a lot of wealthy people, and the last thing I would call them is selfish. They're actually very generous, and they give to charity and stuff all the time. So they gave to me a lot. So I thought, wow, isn't that interesting? Why would I, of all people, think that rich people are selfish when my own life experience of direct people, I'm not talking about people I see on TV or people I don't know, but I'm talking about people I actually know, they don't fit these adjectives. So I was a little embarrassed to say, like, why do I feel this way? Now, some of you know my story, probably most of you don't. I'm a second-generation sales trainer. My dad is a sales trainer. He wrote a book called The Spirituality of Success, Getting Rich with Integrity, about his journey through sales and success, and how the things that he learned to be successful in sales were the same things that that anybody can learn to get to where they want to be. And if you read right in the first chapter, so I'm not like letting anything out of the bag. Both of my parents worked. My mom was a teacher. My dad was a successful businessman. He had 3 different stores in Queens on Woodhaven Boulevard, if you lived over there. And he was doing really well financially. And I guess in the 80s, if you did really well, you got into a bad habit of cocaine, right? So my dad fell into that, thinking that this was something that successful people did. And he went down really fast, went to $100,000 in debt, lost our family, he ended up having to go to rehab for like this 1.5 year long program when I was 8 years old. But he tells him the story in the book, the story of the day that he came to a realization that he needed help. And it was when he broke into my piggy bank to get money for drugs. And you guys, if you know me, you know I've always been a saver. I love saving money, and I was even since a child. I had that saving mentality like in my brain. So I had like hundreds of dollars in my piggy bank at 8 years old. But anyway, so even though I had a lot of people assume that I grew up, wealthy since the day, my family was wealthy throughout, but that's not true. It actually wasn't until I was, a teenager that my dad experienced some success. And so all through my childhood, I actually have like the same kind of programming that most people have. Actually, 92% of people is the statistic, at least, definitely over 90%, retire needing the help of friends, family, or the government just to make ends meet. I'll repeat that again. 92% of Americans retire needing the help of friends, family, or the government just to make ends meet. So what does that mean? That means that 92% of people when they retire are not financially free, right? Secure. And Social Security, they rely on Social Security as their primary income. And if it wasn't for that, they'd be in big trouble. So what that tells us is that 92% of people, the people you might even look up to, have the formula for success and for financial success completely wrong. Whatever. And those are probably the people that taught you. And there's a 92% chance that you were taught principles that are not actually going to get you to where you want to be financially. So here's what it comes down to. We stated intentions in the beginning of the meeting, and every week we talk about numbers and pushing those numbers and increasing those numbers and conversions and sales and income and all of that. And you say you want it, right? I bet you could think of a lot of things to do with the money that aren't bad things. It's not hurting anybody, doing good, giving to charity, making your family more secure, giving your kids a better education, going on nice vacations, giving back. All of that are things that you can do with money that you might not be able to do now. So you say you want to get there, or I said I wanted to get there. But when I did this exercise, I realized that I thought rich people were selfish. And any of these things, we have liars, superficial, arrogant, ugly, selfish, greedy, and fat, right? So if you believe that rich people are those things, like deep down, that's what you believe, even if logically you're trying to undo that, your first, immediate reaction is how you really feel. And that's what's dictating how you behave. So if you feel that rich people are, any of these things, why would you want to be rich? You could say you want to increase your revenue or increase your close ratios or increase your income for any number of reasons. But deep down, if this is how you feel, any of these things, or pick another one, if you feel any of these things, then you're going to hold yourself back from doing the things that you need to do in order to be successful. There are people out there. There's me. There's my dad. There's tons of people who have achieved a level of success. They might even just be right beyond where you are. And they can tell you exactly what they did to get there. But if you don't change this idea in your head, then you're always going to, again, subconsciously mess yourself up, and you're not going to follow those things that work to get you to where you want to be. And that relates back to closing. Why? What happens when you're closing a sale that doesn't happen really any other time of the meeting, any other time of the sales process? What happens? When you're closing the sale, you're asking for what? Money. Yeah? So it's really the time when everything comes to a head where you're really asking for the money to make a commitment and to exchange money, right? That's the time. You may have talked about it before, talked about price and budget, but this is the time where you're saying, okay, you could write your check now. Okay, you can give me a check, So this is the time when all of these ideas are going to start getting in your way, and you're going to have this resistance to close. So even if I gave you, the best closing questions of 2019, even if I gave you that list, you'd still have this behind you. And even if you got through that barrier and said the things that I gave you to say, you'd cough. the words won't come out right, because there is this underlying resistance to money. I don't want to be this. And also it can go back to the money, what you're actually exchanging for the money. Do you really believe in what you're exchanging for the money and that it's totally worth it or beyond worth it? So this is part of the nonverbal communication that happens in sales. You can't trick your customers. You really can't. You can say all the scripts that you want, but if these ideas are ingrained in you, they're going to come through at the time, especially when you ask for the sale. And your customer might not know why they feel uncomfortable at that moment, but they're not going to tell you, I think you have some limiting beliefs about money and what you're actually transferring, because the way you coughed and swallowed right there was an indication that you don't really believe in what you're selling. They're not going to say that to you. I'm going to say that to you. But they're not going to say that to you because they don't know. They're just going to feel uncomfortable because you feel uncomfortable, because you transferred that emotion of feeling uncomfortable to the client. Right? If you watch my training, you'll learn more about transferring emotion in the sale. So you feel uncomfortable. You see how this all goes back to your beliefs? You feel uncomfortable because if you ask for money, you might be rich. You don't want to be rich because rich people are all these bad things. And so you get uncomfortable, and that transfers to the customer, and the customer feels uncomfortable. And is the customer going to say yes if they feel uncomfortable? No. They're not going to say yes if they don't feel totally comfortable. And that all goes back to you and what you're communicating to them. So when I do my, coaching practice, it's really important for me to be able to see what you're doing. People don't want to people want to, they'll take a course and they want to change and they want to make more money, but they don't actually want to change. So they'll resist sharing what they do with you because they don't want to be told that they're doing anything wrong. But if you're not doing anything wrong, then there's, nothing you can change. Therefore, there's no way you could get better. So you're really just, again, messing yourself up. Your limiting beliefs are getting in your way of not wanting to improve, because do you really want this result? No. So how do we change this? And why is it this way? We might have to save that for another meeting. But to give you a quick nugget to take away, the main reason we feel these ways, one is what we were taught, and most of what you learned before 5 years old, even 13 max, is the beliefs that you will keep for the rest of your life unless you consciously change them. So a lot of it goes back to how we were brought up, some things that maybe were said in your family. I know my grandma used to say, money changes people, money changes people. And I also noticed, because of my acting background and my love for theater and film, that if you look at any of even the fairy tales that we were brought up with, who was the bad guy? Or the bad lady? It was always the rich people, the king, the queen, right? And they misused their power and hurt people with their money. So we were brought up, even if your parents, maybe taught you some things, what you are surrounded by in the society of the 92% of people that haven't figured it out, that is all going to go into what your deep set beliefs are about making money, rich people, wealth, and all that. So it's not your fault that you feel this way, but it is your fault if you choose not to change. Okay, so it's not your fault if this is how you feel. Now you're just aware. But now that you're aware, now you have an obligation to change. Because I can tell you what I did to change this belief is I almost did like a scientific experiment on my own brain. I had to my friend Barb calls it collecting evidence, right? Like when you want to believe something, you collect evidence to make it true for you. So you really can believe anything that you want, is what that means. So if you want to believe something else to help you get to where you want to be, like this is a belief. There's beliefs and they're either serving you or they're not serving you, right? So this is an example of a belief that is not serving you if you want to get someplace, okay? So now you have the choice if you want to change that, and you do that by collecting evidence. So the way I did that was I examined the rich people in my life that I knew very personally, not who I see on TV, not who someone else says about someone, okay? Those are their opinions. They probably have their own limiting beliefs. They may be true, they might not be true. It doesn't matter to me. If I feel this way, it's limiting me from what my full potential is and what I can give back to the world. Because I know, first of all, I got to make sure I'm okay financially in order to help anybody else, right? You need to be okay financially before you can give to anybody else. So I looked for all the evidence of people that I knew and how they were. And I know like one big person was my uncle. Like he was like my rich uncle always my whole life. He was always the rich uncle. But he was always the one that gave back the most. If you make 10 million a year, you give $1 million away a year. Well, heck, that's way more than the average person's gonna give away. So I kept seeing these examples of wealthy people being generous, And so I kept having to change how I thought so that I felt differently about that. And that was the thing, actually, for me, it happened when I hit my first 6 figures. I was at this barrier that my sales were plateauing and I couldn't get to the next level. And that's when my coach started talking to me, my dad, started talking to me about money and how I feel about money and why. Even though I knew what to do, I was having a resistance to doing it. And so if any of you are having resistance in closing and that exchange of money, think about how you feel about money. We'll have a whole other discussion about money itself at another time, but I wanted to bring you this to light for you so that you can have that as a takeaway for this week. All right, well, have a great week, everyone. I'm here, I'm on your side, and I want to see you win. Bye. It's the Monday Morning Motivator with Magoch.